Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're going to be tackling sport management,
Okay.
which is, more than just cheering for your favorite team.
Right.
We're going to be looking at some university lecture slides to give us kind of an overview of
right.
how this field really works. And I think we're going to find that it's a lot more complex than maybe we thought at first.
Yeah, and it's changing, too.
Yeah.
That's what's really fascinating is how much this industry is changing.
Okay.
And it's impacting everybody, from the diehard fans to the people that own the teams.
Let's get into it then.
Okay.
So the slides start off by defining some key terms.
Right.
Leisure, physical activity, and sport.
Okay.
So they're all kind of connected.
Yeah.
But how would you differentiate them?
So I guess the way to think about it is leisure is free time, right?
Okay.
Free time, personal choice.
Yeah.
Physical activity, that's any bodily movement.
Right.
But sport is where things get really interesting. It's kind of this unique intersection where it's unpredictable, it's spontaneous. You can train and strategize all you want, but, one last-minute goal or a sudden upset can just change everything.
Oh, for sure.
So that really makes it quite different from, say, manufacturing cars.
Yeah.
Where you can control a lot more of the outcome.
Like the difference between a scripted play and like a live improv.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and and this unpredictability has a ripple effect, right?
Right.
So think about broadcasting deals where networks pay big bucks for the rights to show games.
Yeah.
Well, if the game's a blowout, viewership can totally plummet.
Right.
But if it's down to the wire, then everyone's glued to their screens.
Yeah, absolutely.
So lots of planning and organization goes into it, but you can never really account for that unknown.
Right. You can't predict the outcome of the game.
Exactly, and that's what makes it so exciting.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so this unique nature of sport, it directly impacts the way the whole industry is structured. So this quote from Trelletterai, who's, a sport management expert, he said that sport management is providing leadership and managing resources effectively to maximize the benefits of sport and physical activity.
And the slides make it really clear that this field is booming.
It is. Yeah.
They're talking jobs in everything from sporting goods manufacturing to sports tourism.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just about coaching anymore.
Oh, no, not at all.
Right.
The career paths are so diverse.
Okay.
It's like you can imagine combining your passion for sport with things like marketing or finance, event management, even law.
Wow.
Like if you're a data whiz, sports analytics is a hot field right now. And if you're more of a people person, maybe public relations or community outreach is more your calling.
So there really is something for everyone.
There really is.
Whether you like crunching numbers or, getting out there and talking with fans.
Exactly.
Well, speaking of fans, let's talk about how people actually engage with sport. The slides talk about 3 different ways: cognitive, affective, and behavioral.
Right.
So can you break those down for us? What does that all mean?
So think of it like a journey a fan takes.
Okay.
It starts with cognitive involvement, and that's all about absorbing knowledge and information.
Okay.
So that could be anything from learning the rules of the game to, memorizing player stats or, reading post-game analysis.
So it's the intellectual side of it?
Precisely.
Yeah.
And then you have the affective involvement, which is all about emotions.
Okay.
So that feeling when your team scores the winning goal.
Yeah.
Or the sense of belonging you get when you're at a game.
Yeah.
The identification you feel with the players.
Yes.
Those are all part of that affective experience.
So feeling it more than thinking about it.
Exactly. And then you've got the behavioral part.
Right.
And that's all about taking action.
Okay.
So that could be anything from, attending games, buying merch, joining a fan club, even playing the sport yourself.
Right. So actually going out and doing something.
Yeah.
Okay.
So a great case study of how teams are trying to understand these different levels of fan engagement is the Ottawa Senators, the hockey team.
Right. The Sens.
Yeah, exactly.
And the slides talk about this idea of segmenting the fan base.
Yes.
So what does that mean in practice?
So imagine you're looking out at a packed arena.
Okay.
You've got families, diehard fans, all decked out in their team colors. You've got casual viewers, corporate sponsors.
Yeah.
So teams like the Senators, they try to understand these different groups or segments within their fan base. And that helps them tailor their marketing to appeal to these different demographics and interests.
So not every fan is the same.
Exactly.
Right.
And this becomes even more important for a team like the Senators that operate in a smaller market.
Right.
They have to be very strategic about how they use their resources.
Mm-hmm.
Even something like a controversial comment from the owner or a poorly timed trade could have a huge impact on fan sentiment, fan loyalty.
So every decision on or off the field has this ripple effect.
Exactly. It's all connected.
Wow. And one of the trends that the slides talk about is that the demographics of sports fans are changing.
Yeah.
And they talk about this kind of trend where higher income individuals are becoming the kind of target demographic for a lot of these teams and leagues.
It's a very interesting trend.
Yeah. Why is that?
Well, a couple things are happening.
Okay.
First of all, ticket prices, especially for, the popular events, they've been increasing steadily, making it harder for some fans to afford going to the games.
Yeah, I've noticed that, especially if you're trying to take a family, it can get really expensive.
It can.
Yeah.
And, this shift towards a wealthier demographic, it's reflected in the marketing, the sponsorship deals as well. You're seeing more luxury brands partnering with teams, and the whole fan experience is becoming more tailored to this higher spending consumer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is there a risk then that the average fan is going to get priced out of the sporting experience?
That's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
And it's one that sport managers are grappling with. If the ticket prices keep climbing, if the merchandise keeps getting more expensive, it could create this sense of exclusivity that alienates a lot of loyal fans.
Right.
So, teams need to find that balance between generating revenue and keeping it accessible. Otherwise, they risk losing the very fans that make the sport what it is.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
So the slides go on to talk about how sport management functions in both the commercial and the community or nonprofit sector.
Right.
So there's some overlap, but what would you say are the biggest differences in their approaches?
Well, I think a good way to think about it is that the commercial side is about providing a service that consumers are willing to pay for. So that could be anything from, a high-end fitness center to a professional sports league.
So it has to be something that people are willing to shell out money for.
Exactly.
Okay.
You got to have a quality product. You got to have great service. You got to be competitive. You got to offer something unique.
Right.
On the other hand, you've got the community or nonprofit sector.
Yeah.
And this is more focused on accessibility, participation, and social impact.
Okay.
So think about public fund rec programs
or
volunteer-run sports leagues or community events.
So it's more about getting people involved than it is about, making money.
Precisely.
So regardless of the sector, though, managing a sports organization requires specific skills, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So what are some of those key skills?
So the slides highlight 4 key management processes that are essential for success.
Okay.
And those are planning, organizing, executing, and evaluating.
So could you give us an example of how those processes work together?
Sure. Let's imagine a local community is organizing a youth soccer tournament.
Okay.
So the planning stage, that would involve setting goals for the tournament, like maybe increasing youth participation in sport or raising funds for new equipment. And would also involve identifying resources, like finding a suitable field, recruiting volunteers, getting sponsorships.
So getting everything in place.
Exactly, laying the groundwork.
Yeah.
Then comes organizing,
Okay.
which is assembling the team, assigning roles, creating a clear structure for decision-making.
Right, so everyone knows what they're doing.
Yeah, and how their contributions fit into the overall plan.
That sounds really important, especially for an event like that.
It is crucial for a large-scale event with so many moving parts.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you've got execution, which is where you put the plan into action.
Okay.
Managing logistics, coordinating schedules, communicating effectively, addressing any unexpected challenges.
Right.
And then finally, you've got evaluation. So that's where you assess the success of the tournament, gather feedback from the participants, the volunteers, the sponsors, to understand what worked well, what could be improved, how to make the next tournament even better.
So it's like a continuous cycle.
Well, it is of improvement.
Exactly. Continuous cycle of learning and improvement.
Yeah.
And these same principles apply whether you're managing a small community event or a major pro franchise.
Right.
But what's really fascinating is how these external factors like social trends and tech advancements are shaping the future of sport management?
Well, the slides actually touch on three major trends
Okay.
that are impacting the Canadian sports industry.
Right.
And they are increasing representation of underrepresented groups, encouraging greater participation in sport and physical activity,
Yes.
and reducing the environmental footprint of the sector.
These are all huge.
Yeah, it seems like the world of sport is going through some major changes.
It really is. And it sounds like understanding these trends is essential for anyone involved in sport management.
Absolutely.
Whether they're working in a professional league or a local sports club or even just a passionate fan.
Yeah, they all need to understand what's happening.
Well, this is all really interesting, but I think we need to take a quick break.
Okay.
When we come back in part 2, we'll delve a little deeper into the practical applications of these trends.
Sounds bad.
And how they're impacting the way that sports are managed and consumed.
Can't wait.
So stay tuned.
You'll be right back.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Before the break, we were talking about some major trends that are shaking up the Canadian sports industry.
Yeah, big changes.
Increasing representation, boosting participation, and going green.
Huge.
These aren't just buzzwords, are they?
No, not at all.
It seems like they're actually reshaping how sport is managed from the ground up.
They really are. It's a pretty fascinating evolution, you know? It's presenting both challenges and opportunities for people in the field.
Okay, well, let's unpack these trends one by one.
Okay.
And let's start with increasing representation of underrepresented groups.
Right.
So what does that actually look like in action?
Well, it's about making sure that everyone, no matter their background, gender, ethnicity, ability,
Right.
has the opportunity to participate in and enjoy sports.
Okay.
So we're talking about creating a more welcoming and inclusive environment at all levels,
Yeah.
from grassroots programs to professional leagues.
So it's more than just having diverse athletes on the field.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's about diversity in the coaching staff, management positions,
Okay.
even ownership roles.
So really building that culture of inclusivity
Absolutely.
where everyone feels valued and respected.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just about doing the right thing, is it?
Well, that's a big part of it, but
Yeah.
it's also good for business.
How so?
Well, think about it. A more diverse and inclusive sporting landscape that can attract a wider fan base, create new marketing opportunities.
Oh, I see.
It can even lead to greater innovation.
Right. So it's like tapping into a whole new pool of talent and perspectives.
Exactly.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to the second trend,
Right.
increasing participation in sport and physical activity.
Okay.
So this one seems pretty straightforward, but what are some of the challenges involved?
Well, I think it's more than just building new gyms and sports facilities.
Right.
There's a lot of factors that influence participation rates,
Okay, like what?
like access to affordable programs, transportation, time constraints,
Mhm.
even just, cultural perceptions of sport.
Right, so you have to really think about all those barriers.
Exactly. You have to remove barriers
Yeah.
and create opportunities for people of all ages and abilities to get involved.
So how do we do that?
Well, this is where technology can actually play a big role.
Okay.
We're seeing more and more virtual fitness classes,
Uh-huh.
online coaching platforms,
Yeah.
interactive apps that make it easier for people to be physically active on their own terms.
So you can basically bring the gym to your living room.
Exactly.
Yeah, I like that.
And for people who still prefer that in-person experience, community-based programs, partnerships with local schools and organizations,
Right.
those can help make sport more accessible and affordable.
So finding those creative solutions.
Mm-hmm. Meeting people where they are.
Okay, now the third trend,
All right.
reducing the environmental footprint of the sector.
Yeah.
So this is something that's becoming more and more important these days.
It really is.
How are sports organizations tackling this challenge?
Well, you're seeing a lot of stadiums adopting more energy-efficient practices.
Right.
Using renewable energy sources,
Okay.
implementing composting and recycling programs.
So those are some pretty concrete changes.
They are, yeah. And it goes beyond just the physical infrastructure as well.
Okay.
Teams are promoting alternative transportation options for fans.
Yeah.
They're reducing waste from concessions,
Uh-huh.
even sourcing merchandise from sustainable suppliers.
So it's like this whole holistic approach to sustainability.
Exactly, yeah.
And it's not just about being environmentally responsible, is it?
No.
It also makes good business sense.
It does.
Right.
It's about appealing to a growing segment of fans who really care about sustainability.
And it seems like all of these trends are kind of interconnected in a way,
They are.
driving this positive shift within the sports industry.
It's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, it's really interesting. But this brings us back to the business side of things.
Okay.
So, with these evolving demographics, how are sport managers actually adapting their strategies to engage fans and generate revenue?
It's a great question. We were talking earlier about the changing demographics of sports fans
Yeah.
and that potential risk of alienating certain groups.
Right, like if you're just focusing on that higher income bracket,
Exactly. Yeah,
are you going to lose those loyal fans who've been with you for years?
that's right. And sport managers need to be very careful about that.
So how do they find that balance?
Well, one approach is dynamic ticket pricing.
Okay, I've heard of that.
Yeah. So that involves adjusting ticket prices based on demand,
Hmm.
the opponent, the day of the week,
Okay.
even the weather.
So you might be able to snag a cheaper ticket
Exactly.
if it's a less popular game.
Exactly. If it's a Tuesday night game against a weaker team,
Yeah.
you might be able to get a better price.
Okay.
And that allows teams to maximize revenue for those high-demand games, but also make it more affordable for fans to go to the less popular matches.
So everyone wins.
Hopefully, yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty clever.
Yeah.
So what else are they doing?
Well, another key area is fan engagement.
Okay.
Teams are realizing that it's not enough to just put on a good game.
Right.
They actually need to create a memorable and interactive experience for the fans.
I've definitely noticed that. There's just so much more happening at games now.
Exactly.
It's not just, watching the game anymore.
Yeah, there's all sorts of activities, entertainment options. It's about creating that sense of community and offering something for everyone.
So you got interactive fan zones,
Yeah.
live music, meet and greets with players, kid-friendly activities.
Yeah, it's like turning a sporting event into a full-blown entertainment spectacle.
Exactly.
And you can't forget about social media either.
Right.
Teams are using platforms like Twitter, Instagram, TikTok
Yeah.
to connect with fans in real time, share behind-the-scenes content, even solicit feedback.
So it's like they're opening up this direct line of communication
Yeah.
with fans.
And it's a really powerful way to build loyalty,
Right.
create that sense of ownership among the fans.
But it's not without its risks.
Right. Well, right. Social media can be a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
One ill-advised tweet or a poorly handled online controversy,
Right.
it can quickly turn fans against a team.
Yeah, so you really have to be careful.
Yeah, it requires a careful and strategic approach.
Well, one of the most important things that we've been talking about is understanding consumer behavior.
Yeah, absolutely.
So sport managers need to be constantly asking questions like, who are our fans? What motivates them? How do they consume sports? What are their expectations?
That's a lot of information to figure out.
It is. It's a lot of data to analyze.
It is, and that's where data analytics comes in.
Okay.
Teams are increasingly using data to track fan behavior, identify trends, and make informed decisions.
Right.
About everything from ticket pricing to marketing campaigns to player acquisitions.
So it's about using that data
Yeah,
to create a more personalized and engaging experience for fans.
exactly.
And this is where it seems like the field of sports management is getting really interesting.
It is.
This convergence of these traditional sports management principles with cutting-edge technology
Yeah,
and a deeper understanding of human behavior.
it's fascinating.
It is. It sounds like a very challenging
Is it?
but rewarding
Yeah,
field to be in.
for sure.
But let's not forget about the ethical considerations.
Right, of course.
The slides touched on the importance of ethical decision-making in sports management.
It's crucial.
So what are some of the ethical challenges that sport managers might face?
Well, they often face some really complex situations
Yeah.
involving player welfare, financial decisions, media scrutiny, social responsibility.
Right.
They have to be prepared to navigate these challenges with integrity and transparency.
So it's like they're not just managing a team or an organization, they're managing a whole ecosystem
They are.
of stakeholders and expectations.
It's a big job.
It is.
Yeah, and, with technology and media evolving so rapidly, the landscape is constantly changing.
Right.
Think about the rise of esports,
Yeah.
the influence of social media, the increasing demand for these personalized fan experiences.
There's a lot to keep up with.
It is.
Yeah.
Sport managers really need to be adaptable, innovative, and always one step ahead.
So it seems like the sports industry is at a really exciting crossroads
It is.
with a lot of potential for growth and innovation. But as we head into the final part of our deep dive,
Okay.
I'm curious to explore how these trends and challenges are impacting the very essence of sport.
That's a great point. In the pursuit of revenue and fan engagement,
Hmm.
are we losing sight of what makes sports so special in the first place?
That's a really good question.
It is, and that's something that we'll definitely explore in part 3.
Welcome back to the deep dive.
Right.
We've been talking about all these different aspects of sport management,
Yeah.
from the business side to the challenges to the trends.
Right.
But I think it's important to remember, why we love sports in the first place.
Absolutely.
Beyond all the data and the numbers, there's something special about it.
Yeah, sport at its core is about passion, competition, the human spirit.
Yeah.
It's about those moments that make your heart race,
Uh-huh.
the shared experiences that bring people together, the stories that inspire us.
And the slides actually touch on this a little bit
They do.
when they talk about fan engagement.
Yeah.
It's not just about filling seats.
Right.
It's about creating that genuine connection with fans and fostering that sense of belonging.
Think about your own experience as a fan.
Yeah.
What keeps you coming back for more?
Yeah, what is it about sports that gets me so excited?
Yeah. Is it the thrill of victory?
Sure.
The agony of defeat?
Yeah.
The sense of community you feel with other fans? Maybe even the nostalgia. Thinking back to childhood memories.
It's those emotional connections
Exactly.
that make sports so powerful.
And sport managers need to understand that
Yeah.
and tap into those emotions.
Right, like we talked about with the Ottawa Senators, player transactions, the owner's comments.
Yeah, all of that stuff.
Those can really affect how fans feel.
It goes way beyond the game itself.
Right.
It taps into the emotional core of being a fan.
And these days, fans have more ways than ever
Right.
to make their voices heard.
Yeah, social media has become such a powerful tool
Absolutely.
for building those relationships. But it also requires really careful management.
Right, you gotta be on top of it.
Yeah, and a genuine commitment to transparency.
Right, so it's like this constant conversation.
I like that analogy.
Yeah.
It's a constant conversation between the organization and its fans.
You gotta be listening, responding,
Exactly.
making them feel heard.
Making them feel like they're part of something bigger.
So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive
Okay.
into the world of sport management,
Yeah.
what are some of the key takeaways for our listeners?
Well, I think first and foremost,
Yeah.
sport management is this multifaceted field.
Okay.
It requires business savvy, a deep understanding of human behavior,
Yeah.
and a genuine passion for sport.
Can't forget about that.
Yeah, you gotta love it.
And we also learned that the industry is constantly evolving, driven by those changing demographics, technological advancements,
Yeah.
and that growing awareness of social responsibility.
Big changes happening.
And maybe most importantly,
Yeah.
we explored that tension between the business of sport
Right.
and the essence of sport.
That's the big question.
Right.
How do we balance the pursuit of revenue
Yeah.
with preserving those values that make sport so meaningful?
That's the million-dollar question.
It is, yeah.
So do you have an answer?
Well, I think the answer lies in remembering that at its heart,
Yeah.
sport is about human connection,
Okay.
shared experiences, and the pursuit of excellence.
Those are good things to keep in mind.
They are. And whether you're a fan, an athlete, or a professional working behind the scenes,
Yeah.
we can all do our part to keep that spirit alive.
That's a great note to end on.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive
It's been a pleasure.
into sport management.
Lots to talk about.
There is so much. We hope you gain some new insights, sparked some interesting conversations,
Yeah.
and maybe even discovered a new perspective on the world of sport.
That's what we're here for.
Exactly. And as you continue to engage with sport, whether as a fan, a participant, or a professional,
Yeah.
here's something to think about.
Okay.
How can we ensure that the love of the game
Yeah.
remains at the forefront of everything we do,
Good question.
even as the industry continues to evolve and adapt?
Something to think about.
Yeah. All right. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.
See you later.